Right, Alison, we
Are live with a
are
very fluffy
live with a very
microphone
fluffy
there.
microphone. I'm just going to twist this.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Right, hey, hopefully everybody can hear us and people are filtering in, which is great. Welcome, everybody. If you have seen us loads, very welcome. It's lovely to see you back. If you are new, also very welcome.
Yeah, I think
Sure,
we've
so be a
got
lot
lots
of
of
new
people. Yeah,
people,
which is
so
always nice, isn't it?
always nice. So
Yeah.
yes, you are very welcome.
Um,
Brilliant. What?
Good. Right. Well, maybe we should start, Laura, because as always, we have got a lot to get through. Maybe whilst people are coming in, we could just introduce ourselves. I can't scroll down, usual usual problems.
Here we go.
I'm Alison, founder of Kokoro. So been working in research for many, many years and I've worked on the school for the last 5 years. We'll tell you a little bit about that in a moment. But Laura, who are you?
I'm Dora. I have worked at Kokoro for a very long time and also started the school with Alison 5 years ago. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, we chose the topic of rejuvenation, and we're going to talk about it in several different ways today. First of all, we're going to talk about customer centricity, and I think the need for us to rejuvenate some of the
Yeah.
ways of working as an insight industry, and then we're going to reflect on that in relation to consumers. Firstly, set the stage, and then I think really importantly, show brands how they could help consumers sort of move their lives forward
Yes,
in very
absolutely.
important ways. Um, Laura, uh, important question. Why do we exist?
Well, why do we exist? Our absolute mission is to understand the customer world in its kind of broadest sense, I think. Every kind of um, area, I think. So often it's a zero-sum game. Things that are seemingly disconnected from your sector have a huge ripple effect. People have only got so much money, they've only got so much time, they've only got so much attention. And so we look at that entire globe. And I think what we see our role as is really helping businesses bridge the gap between their world and their customers'
Because
world.
oftentimes there's a very, very big disconnect.
Bigger than we'd like to ever
Ever.
think. And it doesn't make us popular by pointing out how big the gap is,
No.
but it absolutely is there.
Yeah. But I think importantly, I think if I was to summarize that, we're trying to improve the gut feel anybody working for a business has around consumers. So
Yes.
no matter what they're doing, anytime, any day, they're going to make good decisions on behalf of their consumers. That's our role in a nutshell.
Yes, it absolutely is.
And it looks pretty important here and now to be able to do that, because if you're not doing it regularly, according to customers' own observations of the world around them, you're going to be off the pace.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going through a period of a huge amount of change. People can really, really, really feel that. You can see that there. That is a kind of sensation of, help me. I need to kind of move forward. I need to navigate this.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it was good change, then maybe you could take your foot off the pedal. Maybe you could just grow with the market. But the truth is, we're going through a period which has been very, very rough
Yeah.
on consumers. So we look at net optimism here. We've got benchmarks going back to 2010 here. Post financial crisis, optimism was squeezed. We then went through a very long period, starting in 2012, when, of course, the Olympics, Kate and Will got married, of relative
Mm.
stability. And then we've had 5 very difficult years for very different reasons, but it's been a very difficult time.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see, I mean, it's been turbulent, and it's been kind of way off those kinds of figures that we would normally see around net optimism. So many people kind of qualitatively speak to me, and it's just a kind of sense of like, what now? Like, what next? Like that kind of sensation of just kind of difficult after difficult. And I think, we have seen some improvement over those years relatively in optimism, but this is why it's so helpful to have that whole picture. We are way off that sense of stability and even keel.
Absolutely. And in the line between the area between the yellow and the turquoise is a lot of pain and anguish and missed dreams on behalf of consumers. So, Laura, just one reference to what we do on the score. We basically are a tracker of the mood of the nation, what people are feeling, thinking, and doing. It's on us, basically, to be tracking all the important topics. We do 2,000 interviews every single week. You've got a qualitative community. But the real magic of what we do is at the top of this chart here.
Yeah, absolutely. Storytelling. We're very proud to have been recognised for our storytelling within the industry, and we tell stories in lots of different ways. I mean, one client put it as you've got kind of a menu, and so we look at having kind of lift and drop reports, shorter kind of webinar style things. We've got customer vox pops, all of those sorts of things. But really, the whole time, what we are seeking to do is to tell the story, make you feel kind of beautifully in tune with that kind of messy world.
Improve the gut feel of anyone in an organization, because I think no one here, hopefully a lot of insight people would dispute the fact that customer is the oxygen of an organization. And what we tried to do is we've been doing some research of our own to try and quantify sort of the difference between a business in terms of its performance if it has got customer at its heart, customer centricity running through its veins, versus ones that don't. Now, Laura, I just want for a moment to focus on that absenteeism figure. 81% less in businesses that are customer centric. Now, I think that really is very significant. I want you to paint what it must feel like to work in a business that is customer centric.
Yeah, I think that number is incredible, isn't it? And I think what it is doing is it is giving this sense of almost kind of scientific intuition. You feel kind of completely in the know. You are making really well equipped decisions, and as you said, you kind of could show up to work really, really well. There's a confidence in this, isn't there? If you are customer centric, you can understand why certain things are kind of moving the way they're moving. You feel kind of a lot of faith in what you're doing, and you feel that sense of confidence.
Yeah, and I think that is very significant, isn't it? So it's not about us finding this and telling you to do that. It's about saying, Laura, wherever you find yourself, whatever meeting, whatever decision, whether you're alone, in a group, you're going to feel empowered to be doing the right thing. And that's what we're trying to do with this program. Now, if that's what we're trying to do, which we think is very important, we think it's particularly needed at this moment in time because it looks like, and very strong evidence here, that businesses are kind of turning their back on the culture of customer centricity.
Yeah.
Explain the numbers first on here.
Staggering, isn't it? Okay, so we've got spend here. We've got in the blue management consultancy, in the yellow spending on advertising and market research, which we always look at as, you know, listening to your customer or talking to your customer, some kind of communication with real customers. Now, there was a time when they were kind of quite level pegging. They have moved in a very kind of difficult direction, I think, that gap widening. When we think of a world of high change, when we think how important that customer is, the oxygen that should be flowing through a business, to be on the side of management consultancy over customer feels deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it is. And I think in that yellow line is almost the demise of the insight industry as well, isn't it? We are being sidelined as businesses seek information from other sources. One of the things that is a slight sidetrack here, I reflected on when I started my career, which was a very long time ago. I worked in an insight team in the Burton Group, which moved into Arcadia. We reported to the chief executive office. like that was the status of that department in that business. I don't think that happens anymore. So really important chart. Customers are not center enough. Now, I want to come back to that notion of change. We've already established that the world is changing faster. Consumers think their lives are changing very fast. Now, there's an irony here, isn't there? Because there's opportunity in change.
Yes, absolutely. Almost when things are changing around you, particularly when that change is bad, it is impossible to stand still. It is either kind of a move backwards or it is absolutely a move forwards. And so there's threat, danger, and opportunity. I think this is just such a beautiful encapsulation of that. You know, that's what's on the table at this kind of given moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one final chart before we move on to kind of what we're discovering about consumers. So this is evidence, I think, that the score does help our clients. So we've been going 5 years. We have had 24 clients since 2020 that happen also to be in the FTSE 350. So it's a significant number within that group, that cohort. Their performance up to 2020 was below the market average. Over the last year to October, we see their performance now 6 percentage points higher than the market average. So hopefully that is evidence that if you buy the score as part of a customer-centric world, it actually does yield good returns for the business as well.
It's absolute rocket fuel.
Yeah. Okay, so there we have it. I think customer centricity is important. Now, so I think we've talked about rejuvenation in the context of us as a sector, and we've really got to get some self-belief that we've been sidelined. What we really want to talk about now is rejuvenation from a consumer point of view. We think it is a Control-Alt-Delete moment. We're going to paint the backdrop of why we think it is, and then we're going to finish off by showing you how you could tap into this mood. So the first thing is, Laura, ever since the election, there has been a sort of faltering of consumer confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Optimism, we would really want to see that climbing. It's that kind of itch, that sensation that so many people had. The start of this year, the kind of moment of the election, there's been a lot of kind of moments whereby there was just this desire of kind of enough, move forward, that kind of sensation. We are not seeing that come through. We are seeing a sort of depressing steadiness, faltering in those numbers. This is a problem.
Yeah. And I think for many consumers, they got to July this year, they realised that they did not trust the government that was running our country, and they voted for change. Now, we weren't told very much more than change, but we were promised change, and that was important at that moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely. That felt kind of necessary, tantalizing, tempting. It felt we absolutely had this yearning to break with something and move forward to something else. We wanted energy, we wanted injection, rejuvenation. That is what people thought they were voting
for. A steady course to somewhere better. Now, the truth is, we've felt very uneasy over that period of time. And if we look at this chart on the left-hand side, the UK is heading for a massive recession. We can see that really not long after the election, that's just started to build. It's still lower than it has been at points in time, but it's got horrible momentum in the wrong direction.
Yes, absolutely. Momentum is key. Humans are very, very drawn to what is moving and what is changing. And this is changing in kind of every wrong way. So it might still look low, but the steepness of that curve is important. That is a sensation of what next.
And I think, Laura, really importantly, we can't quite put our finger on what is the problem.
This is really challenging, I think. When something feels hard to define, when we don't know what the cause is or what's driving it or how we really feel, and we don't really know how to talk about that, is difficult. And we see these kind of barriers to happiness in this kind of broad, sort of gloomy, cloudy territory of just kind of bad news, and there's going to be more bad. And I think that that makes it so hard. I was saying to you, it's like when you're looking after a baby and you've tried everything and it won't stop crying. Like what, like where is this coming from? Is this kind of sense of it's just gloomy and I can't see a way out, but I don't know why.
I don't feel confident as a result of it. It's hard to kind of get my plans together. Let's reflect on the budget that happened last week. And I think this sort of adds to that sense as well, doesn't it? Because actually, it was quite a cleverly positioned budget. And we look here on the left-hand side as net support for all of the things that they announced. And eye-wateringly large tax increases as part of that. Yet, on average, we actually quite liked the feel of it. Why did we like the feel of it?
Yeah, that sort of first reaction. I think one of the main fears of people was that actually they would go back on that promise not to up sort of personal taxes, and we were kind of very kind of focused on that. When that didn't happen, when your main fear is alleviated, that is a sense of relief. It's a sense of, okay. And I think we've also got some evidence on the next chart that they focused on things that we thought really needed attention.
In terms of spending, NHS was very up there, wasn't it? The education, some form for sort of wars and that kind of effort as well. And we can see that these are the things that we think are broken. We look at the NHS on the left-hand side. When we look at things total broken in the UK, sort of things relating to that are 3 of the top 6 or 7 there. And of course, compared to previous budgets, we should have done more for the NHS, but way better perception of that. So yeah, so our system on response was quite good to it. So it feels okay. But still, there's a sort of underlying unease about it. And the underlying unease is when we're asked to think about what it's going to do for growth, for long term, we're much less certain.
Yeah, yeah. I think there is this, as you say, more sort of system two kind of rational awareness that this is not a route to growth. You can see that on the left-hand side in terms of customer perceptions, but actually over on the right-hand side, you can see like this is where the OBR see it going as well. This is
I mean, actually worse than before they did the budget. So despite spending all of that money, 70 billion pounds, which is incidentally going to help grow the economy next year in 2025, that sugar rush, they're basically saying over the tenure of this government, they're focusing lower growth in GDP than if the budget hadn't come along. So that's quite a big thing to take in, isn't it? So again, just slight unease. Our sort of initial reaction is good, and then sort of is all absolutely good. Laura, just want to put that 2% into context. So we're told next year, 2025, that GDP is forecast to grow by 2%. Now, economists think 2% is a good number. They think that is sustained growth. It's definite growth. It's not a sort of a rounding error, but it's not explosive growth that will lead to kind of a boom or a bust sort of situation. Now, look at this chart and look back to sort of 2017 post sort of Brexit. We've either been in boom and bust around the pandemic, or we've been under that 2% line. And the only time we're going to get to 2% in that turquoise is next year. And that's because 70 billion is going to get poured into the economy via government spending.
I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? I think it really is. And I think when you look at that line, there hasn't been a period of such low under that line for as long in 70 years. That feels kind of so challenging, isn't it? And I think we can kind of see that really kind of unraveling over, taking us up to 2029. That is really, really, really difficult. That is a sense of kind of real unease, real itchiness, real weariness.
Yeah, that we have to face into as individuals, and brands also can help us. And that, of course, is where we're going to come to with RejuveNation. Now, if there's one metric I think everyone should be glued to over the coming weeks and months, it's unemployment. Now, I say that because of that NI increase. 25 billion has gone to businesses. And we can already see that that is coming at a time when, on the left-hand side, fewer businesses are struggling to recruit. And also, according to our figures, which I think are always ahead of government figures, we're just seeing an uptick in the number of people unemployed.
Yeah, and people are already drawing those lines kind of qualitatively. What is it going to mean for people who are employing people, thinking about taking on kind of new team members and things like that? There is going to be, more worry about that, more cautiousness, more trepidation. Of course, all of that comes under a kind of cloud that's already been building around AI and what that might mean for work as well. So absolutely one to watch, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think the final metric within this section that we really want people to look at is I'm worn out right now. Now, exhaustion is something we've talked about a lot. We talked about it in the pandemic. We talked about it through the cost of living crisis. That feeling was sort of coming down right to election day, and then it's pinged back up.
Pinged up and really sustained for a kind of number of weeks there, I think. And this is difficult. This is absolutely a sense of challenging energy, real kind of weariness. Where do we turn? And I think, it absolutely goes hand in hand with that slide that we showed where we don't really know the challenge. It's big and it's difficult and we can't kind of put our finger on it. That means this just sustains.
Yeah, 100%. Now, the thing that really is upsetting about this number is when we speak to many businesses about customer centricity, the importance of kind of the work that we're doing, this, Laura, is something we often hear back.
Yes, that things have settled down.
We don't need to do it.
Yeah. We don't need a frequent read of customer. We don't need to change and things like that. We don't need to kind of understand that kind of whole picture. There isn't a problem with our kind of customer culture because things have settled down, so it's not as necessary. I think it's very hard to know what to say when you're looking into those numbers and we understand that whole kind of globe and you see the amount of change and the amount of apprehension about that change and the sense of weariness about that change. It feels very difficult to use the word settled down.
It does, and of course it's very humanized for us, isn't it? Because we've done this for 5 years, week in, week out. You have spoken to the same people for 5 years and followed this journey. It feels very human, very real to us. Now, I think the next chart is the killer chart of this entire pack, because I think when we hear back from businesses, things have settled down. What they're really saying is things have settled down for me. So this is the number of people who've had a 5% or higher pay rise. The yellow is the average of the last 3 years. So over the last 3 years, basically richer people have got bigger pay rises. So they've got the bargaining power in businesses. They're the ones that can say inflation is at X, my pay needs to go up by Y, I want a promotion. But what is really, really stark is what's happening here and now. That not only do we see that curve, we see an acceleration of that curve. So 100% things are settling down if you have money.
Yes, absolutely. There's an antidote to that kind of sense of challenge and change. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got the
And that almost comes back to why we exist, isn't it? To try and plug this gap between consumers' world and the world that is clearly different and acceleratingly different. Don't even know if that's a word, between senior stakeholders and the rest of the nation. Because Laura, we have shared these slides before. We wouldn't need to work if this graph were true. Now explain the graph.
The graph, so this is a code on the survey. Lots of people are much worse off than me, broken by household income group. This is exactly what you would expect to see, that with every notch up in terms of income, you get this kind of sensation that, you know, I'm in this kind of position. There's lots of people kind of worse off than me. That is not correct data. That is data in our imagination. That's how we'd like to see the world. And I'm sure that's how a lot of people listening would like to kind of imagine the world. Yes, if this were true, then we wouldn't need to exist.
We wouldn't need to exist, but this is the real truth, isn't it?
The real truth is absolutely staggering. This is nearly 500,000 people, this sample, and that is depressing, that chart. We don't get this sensation there are lots of people worse off than me. This is everything coming to the fore. This is our own bubble. This is our disconnection to other things. This is a lack of understanding of that kind of whole globe. This is the pay increases. This is so many things coming together that creates a just pit of disconnection, and why we need to exist to plug that gap.
Yeah. And the final bit of evidence of this growing wealth gap is on this next chart here, isn't it? When we look at the usage of restaurants, bars, pubs, cinemas, and gyms here by these different income groups, the yellow lower income, turquoise mid income, the darker one higher income groups, not only have they always had that inequality, but that's growing, and it's growing at an alarming rate
It really is. You can start in your mind to project what this is going to look like in 6 months' time. It looks very uncomfortable. And I think the actual kind of feel of this, what this means for all of our important selves, whether that's our kind of anticipating self, that sense of kind of looking forward to things and having things to talk about, actually the experience in the moment, the remembering what that means for us and how we talk about ourselves, it just keeps kind of moving further and further and further apart. And this is only, these are different income groups to the ones that you've just been seeing. We're taking 0 to 30, 30 to 50, 50k plus.
What happens when we go 100k plus? We must pull that out. And Laura, just a final thought to round this off, that last week we saw the government do things for basic income, didn't they? The lowest earners, their salary, that you know, what's it called, the minimum wage increased. It sounds good again, but we also know that national insurance increase is going to disproportionately affect that group, and they're the group that don't have the bargaining power to sort of fight back against that. So again, I think all of it paints a picture that we should be worried, and it's very easy to be disconnected. Okay, so that is the backdrop, Laura. We are saying enough is enough. Consumers realise the world is not going to change enormously tomorrow. They feel uneasy. They've had enough and they want to move forward. And that's where the more optimistic part of today comes. And it's up to every brand listening to be able to help with that change. So, Laura, I think the first need for Control Alt Delete and reset and move forward comes because what we have lived through has become so painful that we can't even talk about it.
Yeah, we absolutely don't have the ability to focus on it, to look back. I think there's been a lot of things recently that's been encouraging us to look back, whether that's been kind of the inquiry. Boris Johnson wrote his book that was picked to do extremely well. He was given a huge kind of bonus. Those sales have not come through. There's been several kind of big TV moments, haven't there, of these kinds of moments where we're sort of encouraged to pause, reflect, review, look back, and we just don't want to do it. Forwards is the only option. I can't, it's too painful to look at.
It's absolutely painful. I want to highlight the Brexit point there, that in the same report last week, the ORB report on the budget, they noted that Brexit is likely causing about 0.4% decline in GDP. Well, we're looking for an increase of 2%. Like 0.4 is an enormous part of it, yet nobody really can talk about Brexit. So I'm not advocating brands go out and talk about Brexit. What I'm just highlighting is just how difficult it is for us to look back. We do not want to go back. We want to dispel that negativity from our lives. So what we want to do is move forward. We want to start taking action for a better life. Now, the really magical thing is this is already happening. So this chart, Laura, we've asked it forever. What are you doing in relation to your problems?
Yeah, it's a really nice blend of what you could be doing in reaction to any kind of problems. And you've got kind of everything from extremely kind of passive sit back things all the way through to really quite kind of constructive move forward things. And we have really seen that lift in terms of, actually taking action, thinking up solutions, those sorts of things. We've moved into this doing phase, this roll my sleeves up, this kind of just watch me kind of moment.
Yeah, and I think this is another really lovely example of humans right themselves. Generally, if we get too far in one direction, we just implicitly know what to do to kind of get back on the path. And I think this is another turning point moment of that. We just know that the world is not going to fix our life for us. We're going to have to do it ourselves. So, Laura, we want to kind of elevate that into two big hopes, really, around this rejuvenation. And the first is the resolve to focus on the things that I can control. Now, we've been talking about this probably for the last 8 weeks, I think, on the score as a sort of a growing sentiment. And I think the numbers on this chart really bring it to life for us.
Yeah, really incredible. So, on the one hand, we've got actually just kind of following the news, and you can see there's a big pull towards following the news. This is a sensation of needing to stay vigilant. We can sense difficult change. We sense that thing that bad things are coming, those kind of clouds overhead, and so we tune into what is going on. What's really interesting is we then look at kind of recent conversations, and when we look at the biggest movers, the news is really, 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 really stable year in year. We aren't actually, although we're looking at it more, we're taking it more in, we're kind of being quite vigilant. It's not actually showing up in how we're kind of going about things. What is showing up is fun things that our kind of dog's been up to, plans with friends and family, what we've been cooking recently, what kind of new stuff we've kind of brought into the home, what we've been watching, all of those sorts of things. I mean, this is a sense of, I'm like, my world, hone in on that, find the good, find the positivity, and things that I'm completely in control of.
I think that's absolutely right, isn't it? The world is broken. It's only going to break me to kind of worry about that. So I'm going to focus on my world, not in a selfish way, in a preservation kind of way, isn't it? And so there's a resolve to do that. I think the second part is to rise again, isn't it? To reclaim our place, to go back to feeling that level of optimism that we kind of deserve. We know that that should be the life that we do lead. And Laura, this chart on the right hand side, we've shared this before, but it always surprises me. And I think this is implicitly what we want in life, isn't it? We want progress and to end up in a different place.
Yeah, progress to end up in different places, to really feel that sense of kind of special and achievement that kind of comes with that. This is broken by by lots of kind of income groups, and you put yourself on a scale from being part of a select through to being one of the gang. You put yourself in a neutral space, but we can absolutely see that we want to be drawn to standing above, like climbing higher, and I think that that is absolutely what we want right now, isn't it? To, as you say, kind of reclaim our space, get on that trajectory of improvement and moving forward, and have things to reflect on that we're really proud of, and be doing different things today than we were 6 months ago, a year ago, 18 months ago.
Yeah, so we just want to reflect on what that means, because they kind of sound grand terms and want to
Mm.
really crystallize kind of what we're talking about here. So resolve to put ourselves in our own world, and rise to improve our lot. So this is about transformation, Laura, but it doesn't have to be completely drastic transformation.
Mm. We're not really ready for drastic transformation. This isn't about a dream to kind of completely leap to. This is about feeling kind of something else, knowing that we can do this, and we can go on this journey without burning out. That's a different kind of ambition.
Yeah, absolutely. And that burnout is important because we associate that with our old life.
Mm.
And one of the few silver linings of now is that work-life balance.
Mm.
So we want progress without burning out. So it is different to now, but it's about certainty of stepping
Mm.
forward, isn't it? It's about smart moves,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
not being crazy or hugely risky about what we're doing.
No, this what we absolutely want is something we want to move towards with as close to guaranteed success as possible. As you said, this is not about leaps of faith.
Yeah, we were talking about it, weren't we, in relation to games? We often like
Oh,
to draw
yeah.
a comparison with a game, and you had your brilliant Monopoly in jail moment, all the rest of it. Now, we likened this to a moment where we've been playing a really difficult hard game, and maybe just one person plays it. We play Coldix in our house when we've got a very long time, and James always wins. So you like 4 hours, James is the winner. This is now moving to get a game that we can all play, and we can all kind of feel like we're making progress. We're all part of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yes, that is exactly it, isn't it? Playing something we know we can win.
Yeah. Okay, so let's unpick that a little bit. So we think under the heading of resolve, which is fundamentally about creating our own story. I'm living my world and moving forward in my world, and that's going to be happy as long as I can move forward in that. There's two ways brands can help us. They can give us the dream, they can sort of fire us up. And I think really importantly, they have to make us the part of that world. We are the center of it. Because you talk about that comparison thing, it's a root of evil and disquiet.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a sense of kind of staying in your own lane, but also very happily doing that. I think sometimes that feels like a sort of thing to do. This is really about just making ourselves absolutely the kind of the center of things.
Yeah, and so we want to reflect on some data points and then bring some
Mm.
highlights by the way of sort of brand stories to life. So, in terms of the first element of this is fire us up. So, this is, Laura, this is about making us have a dream and believe a dream is possible, isn't it? And if we look on the right-hand side there, we've put a metric in there about encouraging me to embrace every moment. Well, I mean, definitely across every single age group. It only grows with age. And I mean, I guess you've got fewer life experiences ahead of you, so that would become more important. But if you're fired up in the right way and encouraged, what do you feel?
This is that sense of feeling kind of real kind of purpose, I think, a real sort of a real vision and a sense of possibility that it could actually happen. So there's an element of just feeling kind of really encouraged, and you're really kind of going after something you desperately want. So there's aspiration and
Yeah.
inspiration in that.
But I think right here, right now, it's grounded too, isn't it? It's a sensible aspiration. It's my aspiration, and I can own it. I don't have to be
Mm.
somebody else and, try and live a life that is there. We give an example here. We're going to bring quite different examples in, but I think this is an example we've over recent weeks have been looking at women's safety. And we've tested the implicit appeal of various different campaigns. Laura, what would you say here is sort of the things on the right-hand side there? That
They've got this element of freedom to them, haven't they? This element of kind of power to them. This is without fear. This is a more kind of hopeful, powerful stance, I think.
and that's what we believe is the right feel
Mm.
with this sort of territory we're talking about, isn't it? It's making us feel freedom to navigate, freedom to move forward in the way that we want to be
Mm.
able to do that. Laurie, you've brought up here lots of examples of ways that brands might be able to tap into this.
Yeah, I think there's a lot here about, actually I can. And this is about inspiration that is achievable. It's maybe getting me to rethink areas that I previously thought were off limits with real sort of proof points, real success of real people like me, not extremely kind of privileged or lucky people, but there's kind of before and after transformations, actually the sorts of things that might be kind of grinding you down, you could move forwards on, you could change on. It's absolutely about kind of getting those sorts of dreams that you could really kind of move to. I think it's about really smart moves here, so simplifying some of those dreams, moving towards something that can happen. You put that sleep on there, that kind of sense of reinvention, us really kind of moving forwards, I think. And there is an element of this being achievable for me, isn't there? There's progress in here. There's a sense of I actually could make this happen.
Yeah, and I guess in terms of our priorities, a lot of these are going to come back to our primary priorities of health and money, and you can see that sort of running through a lot of
Yeah.
those as well. Okay, so the first thing is fire us up sensibly, encourage
Yeah.
us to be in our own world, do the thing that's really important to us, so we have our own dream. I think that sense of me follows through into our second strand here, isn't it? That make us the hero. We've sacrificed too much for too many people. Too many people have mucked up our lives, whether that's Brexit or Boris or whatever. We now want to fix ourselves. So for once, let us not feel guilty about being the protagonist of the story. And ultimately, we've got a chart there, haven't we, which shows sort of the beginning and the end of this year, that right here now, we want to see ourselves a better version of ourselves. What's the promise here and what's the feel of it?
Well, really, we absolutely want to be a winner. I mean, there's a big thing on kind of social media about kind of main character energy. And I think that that is what this is. This is a really kind of accessible, almost kind of given permission, given real release to be able to sort of put yourself first, focus on yourself and feel really kind of good and powerful in that. And really, I think here is absolutely kind of independence, isn't it? I think if we are focusing on ourselves and moving towards better ourselves, especially when you look at where we want to move better, there's a sense that no one can take that away from me. It doesn't matter what happens in that kind of bigger world. I can kind of carve this path, and I can have proof that that's where I've kind of moved through and I can feel more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to do now is give an example actually of Christmas. So we've been looking at how hosts want to feel over Christmas. The yellow bars on here are what we tracked all of last year. Turquoise is September, October was just a couple of weeks ago. And Laura, I think it's really interesting here, isn't it? Not really worried about guests enjoying
No, never
themselves.
mind.
I think that's because we're sort of assured that they will.
They will.
I mean, blimey, it's great to be invited somewhere, isn't it? But what's really important, and we've got a lot of other metrics, but the ascendant ones basically are give me a bit of help. Being a good host is not actually doing every single thing myself. It is about me enjoying Christmas as well. And so, you know what? I am going to do a few shortcuts and a few hacks because I am going to enjoy this Christmas because I deserve to be the hero of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is about us kind of really experiencing it, isn't it? It's not just that moment of getting validation from other people. We want that experience kind of for ourselves. This is absolutely kind of us at the heart. This is us feeling like we can still participate in kind of every inch of it and position ourselves, I think, really, as you say, as the kind of the super kind of hero of Christmas.
Absolutely. And I think this is going to have massive impact on how we shop this Christmas.
Mhm.
I think we're going to get finished early. We're
Yeah.
not going to want too much of palaver of it. We are going to accept shortcuts. Yeah. So us at the center of the story. Now, tell us more examples of this.
I think there's lots here about really sort of putting ourselves first. And I think that sensation of, putting yourself first isn't selfish. You've got to kind of, pour from a full cup, look after your own cup. And I think there's lots here that's about that. It's about kind of re-examining our own knowledge and understanding about ourselves, helping us kind of learn more, working on kind of personal development, putting us at the middle of things. Give me brilliant stories to tell. I want to be kind of the hero of that piece. I want to really feel kind of at the center of it. I think there's a lot about making us our best selves as well, whether that's from a kind of health angle or from a kind of looking healthy angle. I think that's what we really want. And I think there's an element of recognition. We did a chapter recently looking at kind of footwear and trainers and things like that. And I think that sense of kind of standing out and getting noticed, going into kind of local places, being kind of remembered. This is that main character kind of energy.
Yeah, we are the protagonist.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Starbucks are just bringing back, aren't they?
Writing on the
Writing a
fence.
thing.
Yeah, I
Do you
know.
remember the first time we got that as a stamp, as a like computer thing? And I went, hmm. Like
Yeah.
we like to be the center of the story forever, and particularly now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the resolve. It's give me the fire, give me the dream, and it is about me. The second thing is once I've got the dream, just help me get there, help me rise. And that is small, meaningful steps.
Mm.
Now, we think there's three elements to this. And one is about home. We think that's going to be an absolute safety net within this. One is about risk and reward. And finally, one is about proof points that's going to help us kind of keep moving forward. So the first thing is we are going to want the home as our sanctuary, our base. We give information there about people's view of enjoying time in the home and also finally achieve that work-life balance. Laura, they've just gone up and up and up over the course of the last 5 years. What do we take from being at home?
Well, we absolutely kind of take a sense of sort of rest and a kind of sense of rejuvenation. I think there's a safety there, there's a confidence there. I think it does an awful lot of things for us. We're extremely kind of drawn to it, and I do think that that message of it's okay to have a place that you go to kind of to disconnect, to kind of be you. I think really resonates. You can see we're kind of increasingly drawn to it, and in that I think is quite a simple but quite kind of I think recognize it in yourself, a quite nice beautiful sensation of just feeling very kind of content, really kind of nicely present, very kind of just satisfied, I think.
I mean, it's the ultimate, isn't it? That world is mad, this world
Yes.
is good,
Yeah.
and mine, and I can feel literally at home and be myself in it. We're going to pull out some things about television watching because I think it's a very good example just of how important kind of home time has become. On the chart there, I watch too much TV versus I watch TV, basically. Those lines are just getting further and further apart. So what was something we used to feel guilty about, now we've learned is both a simple pleasure, but also a time where we can escape, be grounded, feel ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sort of really redefining that as really quite kind of fulfilling time for us alone or us with others at home. And as you say, yeah, a real kind of sense of escape. You can kind of pursue very kind of hopeful stories, real kind of positive topics of conversation. When we were looking at that, what have you recently been kind of talking about? If you're looking to kind of focus on the good, there's a lot of good that can happen kind of from your sofa.
Absolutely. And then just like as an extension of that, the sofa becomes the dinner table. So really interesting figures, isn't it? We often eat and watch TV at the same time. 2021, we were just emerging sort of pandemic then. It's only grown 63%, almost 2/3 of the nation endorse that. TV provides something to talk about. Well, yes, that's grown as we've not been able to get back to doing other things because of the cost of living crisis. But look for families, you know, we watch telly and we talk. Very different role in this now bubble. So we feel the home is going to be very important within this process of rejuvenation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of in almost any area, kind of a few times when preparing this, we kind of talked about it as a kind of fortress. And I do think there is that kind of element of wanting to kind of block out the rest of the world, make this a really special bubble, whether that's kind of because it's protected and it's safe and we see kind of a big draw to those sorts of kind of security things, or whether that's because it kind of feels just kind of beautifully cozy, a wonderful kind of expression of our tribe, the way we watch telly, the sorts of things that we love. I think we see ourselves really drawn to kind of perfect space space solutions, storage places to do things in the home. We know we're at absolute peak space. We see that on our numbers kind of all of the time. But I think just really drawn to different ways in which we can do these things. There's a lot of immersion kind of coming through here. Some of the things that people get really excited about on the community is putting different lighting in, getting battery powered lights, we're getting fairy lights and those sorts of things. And really what they're doing is creating more of a mood, more of a cocoon, more kind of zones. And that's what we're really drawn to. Of course, entertainment becomes kind of a huge part of this. We want that ring fence downtime. We're seeing kind of people get really into all sorts of different entertainment. That's kind of bird houses with cameras and AI and all of those sorts of things. We love this idea of a castle.
Incidentally, Laura, when I looked at this, it actually struck me that TikTok Shop sort of tick all of those boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge area that they play in, yeah, completely.
Okay, so home as sanctuary. So the next strand of this is that to rise, we're going to have to be constantly reminded that it's not too risky to move forward, and there is going to be a reward attached to it. Now, we say that because of all this general vulnerability and unease, and we can see it in those numbers there that more than at the start of this year, we want to feel in charge of the things that matter to me. So there is that draw to want to control my own world, but I also don't want to make any risks in doing that.
It comes back to that idea of mastery, doesn't it? I think this kind of sense of it just has to be successful. I must move forward and feel like it's going to kind of work out.
Yeah. Now, the big problem for brands is one thing that we've been very successful of this year is saving money. So we can see on the left-hand side, currently adding to savings, that has really tipped up since the beginning of this year as inflation has sort of gone down and we've been able to save, and we've chosen to do that. Now, the real worry for brands is we oftentimes don't know what we're saving for.
No, they are these sort of vague rainy day kind of saving pots, or kind of just in case saving pots. Of course, we're vigilant. We're worried about what's kind of coming. So that feels kind of so sensible. Not that many of us have kind of specific goals. They become these kind of endless saving pots. We are extremely drawn to them. That kind of endowment effect plays out to like absolute maximum level, whereby anything you've saved, you want to hang on to. It feels so much more valuable than something you've kind of newly and so they're sticky, these savings, aren't they? This isn't save to spend. This is save to save.
Absolutely. So the way that we get someone to spend is to increase the sense of reward and decrease the nervousness attached to that. Now, we're pulling this out in relation to online shopping at the moment. We've got here the number of people on the vertical axis who say online shopping is good on each of these elements. On the vertical axis is the change from last year. So, Laura, my eyes immediately go to the things that are very down on last year and have forever not been particularly good, and that's the cost of delivery and returns. Well, then that's a very, very good example of I won't bother.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. These feel kind of like barriers. These feel like things that are kind of working against us. This could all be for net loss, and feeling kind of quite a lot of pain associated with that.
Okay, so finish off this section. How can brands help lower the risk, raise the reward?
Well, I mean, there's a lot around pricing, isn't there? I think those kind of moments where it's kind of all-inclusive pricing or really kind of predictable pricing, I think that makes people feel that sense of assuredness. We see a lot of kind of bundling of selected products or really kind of curated ranges. That is a sense of having made really good choices, I think, which of course we are drawn to. Anything where there's kind of specials, rotating offers, different kind of focuses, I think that can feel really, really good. We want a sense of transparency and we want kind of information. And I think that there are ways in which that comes at us and it's just kind of completely overwhelming. So ways to kind of simplify, get us focused on something and get us kind of moving towards it. I do think that, the clothing, that returns and refunds must be causing a lot of pain in a lot of businesses. I think really kind of helping people kind of see that and kind of scale that, ways to be flexible. I need to feel kind of in control, and I also need to feel like this thing's going to be great, and it's that combination.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't take unnecessary risks. Okay, the final thing we think brands can play to is just help us see the changes, see how the progress is coming along. So provide proof that I can share with others. Now, we pull out there the number of people buying cosmetics and beauty at this moment in time is way up on last year. And honestly, if you look better on the outside, it's a good proof point that I'm doing okay on the inside, isn't it? So when you get these proof points, then how do you feel?
I mean, that is the kind of ultimate moment, isn't it? It's huge validation. You feel recognized, you feel kind of admired, I think. And there is that sense of, I think, particularly when it comes to something like this, we want that outward reflection of inward kind of success. And that's what this gives us.
Yeah. And so, how can brands help us do this? Well, this was a chart from a few months ago, wasn't it? When we were looking about tracking progress,
Mm,
and actually, the people with clear goals in life versus those without goals, kind of what were the things, what were the tactics in a way that they were deploying to help create that
mm,
clarity around their goals? And really intriguingly, it was physical things.
mm,
So, it wasn't really Excel spreadsheets or phone things like buzzers or whatever. It was actually a calendar, a physical
mm.
calendar with dates on it. It was physically taking pictures and then I've got them, lists on paper. Tell us about this. Why does that work?
Well, I think there's something just kind of beautifully tactical about it that gives us that sort of sense of proof and recognition. We've all had that joy of ticking things off, and you can't mentally do that. It doesn't feel the same when you're doing it on a phone. Absolutely having kind of crosses through things, having these visual representations kind of around our homes, they just give us this kind of absolute infallible evidence for progress, for the
Yeah,
fact that we've
and
moved
you
forwards.
feel absolutely good about it.
Mm,
This is a note of caution, isn't it? About these, this can be taken too far to have too much visibility or of the progress that you're making. So we did a whole deep dive around running, which is in the ascendancy at this moment in time. And then we looked at runners basically who didn't have paid subscription for a running app. So if you're paying for it, you're probably looking at it a lot,
mm,
basically. And what we discovered amongst that cohort of people is actually it become pressure rather than
mm.
empowerment. Describe how that can be possible.
Well, I think that this is kind of a moment whereby you feel very, very drawn to things. You're reminded about how much you've done this week versus maybe a previous week. You're constantly being shown your kind of improvements. Often with these sorts of things, you are put in kind of, leagues and pitted against other people. And of course, what we really want is to be at the top of one of those. We don't want the kind of real answer. And so I think that that absolutely kind of funds this sense of pressure. You're aware of any single miss, really strongly aware, and I don't think they keep us in our own lane. These don't make us the hero.
I think
um
that's absolutely it instead.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You are not the hero. You're the person who comes second,
Mm.
third, or 100th. Says the person who came almost last when she did a marathon. Anyway, so proof you can share. How could brands help?
I think there's so much. When I was pulling this together, I thought so much about kind of photos and evidence, and really quite tangible things. And in a way, I know they exist kind of on our phones, but photos do feel inherently kind of tangible. I think this is about kind of opportunities to take them. This is opportunities to share them. Brands kind of inviting people and saying, we'd love to feature you, and all of those sorts of things. There's absolute kind of top level kind of proof. All of those sorts of planners and trackers and those sorts of things. I think loads of ways in which we can feel this sense of accomplishment and have real proof. I was drawn to this kind of running and walking thing where you get these kind of incredible medals. You've done the distance rather than the actual thing, but they look beautiful and kind of amazing, real kind of show off sensation. I think anything that you can make your way through, but make your way through kind of quite well, bucket lists and things like that. That, don't you? Whenever it's the top 100 films, we're like, oh, I want to see how many I've seen. Well, we'd quite like it if we've seen 90 of them.
Yeah.
That's the sensation, I think, at the moment. And I think just really just proof that we are nailing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Laura, so just to summarize that, we believe two important feelings at the moment: the resolve to have your own story, to be in your own lane, and permission to be the center of that, the hero, the protagonist, and then to rise within that.
Yes, and this is about small, meaningful steps. This is achievable. This is with the safety and security blanket of a home to completely escape to and stay in your own lane, stay in your own bubble. This is about making the risk feel lower and the reward feel kind of tantalizing. And once we've done those things, giving us this kind of rocket fuel of proof that we can see, but also other people will see, and all of that kind of sense of validation that comes with that.
Yeah, absolutely. We are almost out of time, Laura, so very conscious of that. What would be interesting actually is to kind of think about what would derail us from some of that. And I have to say, social media could be a very big problem, couldn't it, for that? Because your home no longer is your sanctuary. You do get the inside, the outside world come in.
Well, I think, yeah, it's a trip hazard, isn't it? Because for many things, if you want to get fired up and you want to
then
be at the
absolutely.
center of things and almost kind of create your own like Sunday supplement, you absolutely, that is completely the place to be doing that. It's also the place to kind of have proof. So I think there are things. This isn't one of those things that's tick, 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 done. This comes with challenge. We need brands to help us walk this path.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, Laura, just want to finish off by reminding people why we exist and what we do.
Yes, absolutely. So we are constantly uncovering this kind of ever-changing world of customer, understanding what's kind of really going on. Today, we have given our kind of top elevator pitch on the kind of moment, this desire for rejuvenation. Rejuvenation turns up in kind of every single angle of our lives, whether that's what we're doing with our savings or our health, or what our priorities are for 2025, or how we're feeling about brands and the trust there, what we're doing with our money, how we feel about how we look, or what's changing with our meal habits. And all of this is coming to subscribers every week and every single month. And so you really have just touched kind of the tip of the iceberg today. If you would like today's slides, if there are things in here that you would like to see, get your hands on, really kind of visit, you can scan this QR code now. It will take you through to a form. You'll be first on the list to get those slides and recording. Any subscribers listening, of course, you're already kind of on our list. You'll get full PowerPoint download of this today, along with, we've got a bonus video for subscribers as well. So if you have seen that, I'd love to know what you think. And if you haven't yet, it's an interesting watch. It's kind of the last 5 years, what's led us to this point.
Okay.
I have shown you
I have seen it. Yeah.
So yes. So brilliant.
Very good. Okay. Right. Well, see you at the next. Oh, what is the next event going to be, Laura?
We were going to have a session today to discuss whether we're doing the next event. So I guess we are.
I think we absolutely should. So what we do at the beginning of every year is a Hello 2024. We did a Hello 2024. And a few people have said to me during the course of the year, you really should revisit them, see how well you did at your predictions. So you've had a brilliant idea, haven't you, of not us marking our own homework, but actually getting some people alongside us reflecting on how well they think these predictions landed.
Yes, absolutely. We would love some kind of client side experts to kind of work with us to examine them. We'd love to run the event kind of before the end of the year. So I'm going to reach out to some people to see if you would mark our homework.
Yeah, because it's not just about being right, is it? There's insight in where you're wrong as well. Yeah, because I think what we're always trying to do is give a point of view that brands can then sort of grapple with, challenge, have a start point from. I'm confident quite a lot of them will have been more or less right, but it's not about that. Very good. Right. Well, we'll see you all soon.
Yeah, see you soon. A bit like a wrap. That's exactly what it's called. Right. Hey, we'll see you all soon.
Yeah.